the problem with algebra is that a lot of us fear it going into it because it sounds complicated. And in fairness, when we probably first learned algebra, unless we had a really good instructor and a very patient instructor, we probably just closed our minds, right? And didn't want to bother with it. Because one of the most challenging things with algebra is understanding the rules, the order in which things need to be done. And you've all seen this. You're all familiar with BEDMAS. And if you're not familiar with it, or you're like, oh yeah, sort of that rings a bell, okay, you're going to be familiar with it now. It is not complicated. It's very easy. This basically is your instructions for algebra. That's all this is, right? So as a reminder, and you might have done this recently, if you have, great, okay, but we can use these reminders, right? So this is the order in which we solve problems in algebraic expressions. So B, of course, we know stands for brackets, right? So that means that anything in that equation, anything in that expression that is inside brackets, it has to be solved first. Okay, so in the right order, we do brackets. Next is exponents. Okay, so exponents is things like, like 4 to the power of 2, right? So this is your exponent right here. It could be 3 cubed, right? This is your exponent here. And in exponents, right, when that's the second thing that we do when solving algebraic expressions, it's also true of its opposite, right? The square root. Square root is part of what we do here in exponents, right? So brackets comes first, exponents, and then of course square roots is part of that, right? Because it's the opposite of exponents. Okay. The next thing that we do is division and multiplication. Now, what if my formula is 3 plus 2 times 4 divide by 5? Okay. This says I have to do the division first, right? So here's the good thing with BEDMAS. Division and multiplication is to be done in the order in which they appear. Okay, so just because we had to spell, we had to spell BEDMAS, we had to have a way to remember this, right? We put division before multiplication. But really, you can do these in either order, but the proper order is the order in which they appear. So in this case, we would solve the 3 plus 2, right, which is 5, and then we would multiply that by 4 before we divide by 5, right? So 5 times 4 would be 20, and then we divide by 5, right? And we have to look after these equations in the order in which they appear. So we know that 20 divided by 5 is 4. Now, if we didn't do things in the proper order, if we did 5 divided by 5, that equals 1. And then we multiply that by 4, then it equals 4, right? But even though, if you see here, we get the same answer, the rule is that you do division and multiplication in the order that they appear, because when a formula gets more complex, we don't want to be doing division down on this end if we have a bunch of numbers to multiply here first. You know what I mean? So keep things simple and keep them organized, right? Division, multiplication in the order in which they appear. And that's true with addition and subtraction. Okay, you do them in the order in which they appear. And if you do that, if you don't change how you solve your algebraic expressions, once you get through the trying to figure things out stage, like I can't remember how to do this, and where do I move this, and if I change this on this side of the equal sign, what do I do on the other side? Once you get all those basics figured out, and you have a system where you just do things the same way every time, then algebra just becomes second nature. It's not complicated. Okay. So sometimes you'll see questions. We talk about brackets, but you may see square brackets, right? So technically, these are called brackets and these are called parentheses, right? Rounded brackets are called parentheses, but you can call them all brackets. But just remember, if you have brackets within brackets, you solve what's inside the innermost brackets first, right? So again, a simple example, but you can get much longer examples, right? You can get 4 plus 2, right, times 3 plus 14 times 3 times 2, right? And then have those all inside of another set of brackets. So always do the brackets that are on the innermost part of the equation. So you would look after the brackets here. 4 plus 2, you do what's in there first and solve that. Then you have 6 times 3 plus 14 times 3 times 2, right? So it would look like this: 6 times 3 plus 14 times 3 times 2. We still have to do the brackets next. These numbers are all in brackets, but what that means is that they're multiplied, right? So we do 6 times 3 is 18. 14 times 3, was that 52? No, 42. 14, 28, 42. 42 times 2 is 84, right? So you do 14 times 3 times 2. You do multiplication before you do any addition. And so now we have 18 plus 84 is 102, right? Okay, so if you've got multiple sets of brackets, look inside, do the brackets that are on the inside first. And I mean, if just in the few minutes that we've been talking, I mean, if you walked in the room right now and saw this on the board, you probably turn around and walk out. But as you can see, it's not complicated, right? We're simply talking about, you have your series of numbers, you have your algebraic expression, you have your formula, and you solve the information that you have, right? But you just have to do it in the order that you're told to do it. And this is your key, okay? As long as you look for all the brackets and try and figure out first, are there any brackets? Get them all solved. And then if there's exponents, you do those next. If there's square roots, you do those while you're doing exponents. And then division, multiplication as they appear, and addition and subtraction as they appear. Okay, again, not complicated, just do things the same way every time.